1933, after Hitler became Chancellor, millions of copies of Mein Kampf were sold in Germany. It was translated into 16 languages. Millions of copies were sold all around the world. Hitler described his profession on his identity papers as writer. And that was true enough. He made a fortune.
But in 1934, a diligent junior tax officer traced this fortune and sent Hitler a steep tax bill.
This tax file shows that he only declared a fraction of his income, and according to the files of the tax office, at the end he owed at least 400,000 Deutschmarks, which was an immense fortune in those days.
The Reich Chancellor was not amused and ordered a state secretary from the Ministry of Finance to intervene.
By the mid-1930s, Hitler is a multi-millionaire, but despite this, he asks for his tax file to be more or less closed. The tax authorities follow his request. It would be unthinkable that a chancellor today might ask not to pay any taxes.
The tax officer, called Vogel, was ordered to make an exception for Hitler. The head of the Munich tax office declared, all tax reports delivering substance for a tax obligation by the Führer are annulled from the start. The Führer is therefore tax exempt. Hitler's tax file was closed. It's not known what became of Herr Vogel, the sharp-eyed official who identified Adolf Hitler as a tax evader. The Führer didn't pay a pfennig of tax for the rest of his life, yet continued to present himself as a humble servant of the people.
Deutsches Volk, gib uns 4 Jahre und ich schwöre dir, so wie wir und so wie ich in dieses Amt eintrat, so will ich dann gehen. Ich tat es nicht um Gehalt und nicht um Lohn, ich tat es deiner selbst wegen.
The new government chief seemed to put his money where his mouth was. Hitler publicly declined the chancellor's salary he was entitled to and awarded the money to needy Nazi Party members. But millions rolled in from the sale of Mein Kampf. He wasn't paying any tax, and the humble chancellor soon grabbed back the salary he was entitled to. Just a year later, Hitler quietly reclaimed a wage of almost 30,000 marks, plus an 18,000 mark allowance, all of it tax-free. And yet another bonus was about to roll in. Reich President Paul von Hindenburg was on his last legs. He earned a handsome wage plus allowances. But when he died in 1934, Hitler took over his office and claimed his salary as well. Nazi propaganda still presented Hitler as the humble servant dedicated to the people. He was restoring German pride and employment by taking over vast public works projects like the Autobahn road network. Hitler was buying support, and no one seemed to care about the cost.
The fact that all these measures, including the Reich Labour Service and other benefits, somehow had to be paid for with state credits, that didn't interest the people. People aren't interested in credits and debts, which theoretically rest on their heads. They are only interested in what they have in their own pockets at the end of the day. They want to have more take-home pay, and that's what they got.
The Autobahn myth endures to this day. It was not created by Hitler or the Nazi Party, but based on plans that had existed since 1924. By mid-1935, unemployment had fallen sharply, but had not been eliminated. Those Germans still out of work would soon find full-time jobs making weapons. Military spending had top priority. Germany was being secretly rearmed with public money. Like the Autobahn works, this was also paid for with massive borrowing.
It was completely clear to Hitler that these credits could only be paid for by other still-to-be-conquered people. That means that the armament industry was a very calculated investment for the wartime future of Germany. But there wasn't much talk of this. On the contrary, there was always talk of peace.
Industrialist donors, like the steel baron Gustav Krupp, sensed otherwise. They supported Hitler, expecting lucrative arms contracts in return. They donated hundreds of thousands of Reichmarks following Hitler's rise to power. As well as forging the weapons Hitler needed to rearm Germany, in 1933, Gustav Krupp and his fellow industrialists agreed to make regular donations to Hitler. The main Krupp factory donated almost 5 million marks to Hitler over the course of the war. More and more money was rolling in, and Hitler spent much of it on himself and a lavish retreat in the German Alps. Hitler was a regular visitor to the popular picture postcard spa town of Berchtesgaden. He stayed in a holiday home, Haus Wachenfeld.